Pod.
Rugby pod.
Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. And yes, James, the Lions, as we said, they've done it. They have won the series.
They or we?
We. Well,
we're all in it.
We're British.
Yes, we have. And what a way to do it as well. And we've been asking for this whole tour for it to deliver a game like that. We might have been asking in silence, but boy, did both teams deliver.
Yeah, they certainly did. What a ding-dong it was. We've got loads to chat about, including, as ever, a bit of refereeing controversy. I thought he got it spot on, but we'll get into those details.
Of course you did.
Oh, well, the Lions won, so who cares? There's whinging Aussies everywhere. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you subscribed on Spotify.
Before we get into it, producer Rob is back.
He's home. He is home.
Have you missed me, lads?
No.
I have a little bit. I have a small bit because of more so the FOMO, because I wanted to be in Australia and I'm watching you and them cankles. I thought you were meant to be running, Rob. Why were you walking?
He needed a shit at that point. The one that I saw, he's literally doing the shit march, trying to get to the toilet. But it wasn't. That was halfway through the run. Rob, how was it? Firstly, you and Denty and everyone else, what a bunch of legends. But talk us through it. So you've flown out there business class, you're sipping champagne in all the lounges. You've done about 30 kilometres and you've come home in business class and you're back in lovely Stockton. How is life?
It feels good to be home, but my feet are an absolute disgrace. I would describe them as bloody stumps. That's probably the best way to describe them. Absolutely. If they're that bad that when I got home, Jess said to me, "You're sleeping with your socks on." That's how bad they are.
Don't worry, I have to sleep with socks on every night anyway, so don't go with that reference point. So, Rob, you've gone there to do, let's just kind of recap. So, before we get into the show, so you've gone there to do what exactly? What, in your mind, how far were you running and how much did you want to raise?
So I was supposed to do 3 ultras in 3 days.
Which is what?
It's a bit ambiguous, really. An ultra marathon is just anything beyond a marathon, but the planned route was supposed to be 210 kilometres over the 3 days. So I was slightly short, but it wasn't my fault. I will say I was told I had to stop.
Well, you are slightly short anyway in terms of being vertically challenged. You look exactly like Ben Duckett, who plays cricket for England, but you don't like that one. So you had to stop short. Why? Because the shits or the chafing, the feet, the breath? Which one was it?
On the last day, see, when Denty sold it to me, he was like, "Oh, we'll be running through the outback. We'll be running on the beaches of Australia." Lads, 90% of this run was basically like running down the M1 without a hard shoulder, dodging dead kangaroos, snakes, spiders in like the bit of grass by the side of the main road.
That's cool. So did you saw wildlife then? That was going to be my next question. What did you say?
Yeah, a couple of dead kangaroos and that was about it.
A bit of roadkill. Was it as brutal as it looked? Because genuinely, I've obviously watched a lot of the footage and Denty's a good mate of mine. So I've seen him and he's an absolute warrior doing the whole thing and what he's achieved. But how hard was it? I mean, are you sleeping rough as well? Because you're getting up at silly o'clock in the morning. I'm lying in my bed after 10 G&Ts on the night before thinking, how are the lads out in Australia? And it looked absolutely horrific, I'm not going to lie.
It was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. But like, we weren't sleeping rough. Simon had booked these motels, obviously on the cheap, that looked like serial killer city.
In my opinion, that is sleeping rough, mate. That is sleeping rough.
Oh, mate. They've got like bare brick walls, rock hard beds. It was grim, but yeah, it was hard, but it was good. It was good fun, good thing to say you've done. But yeah, it was hard.
There you go. And I would send you a few voice notes, and I don't know because I've not done a challenge of that magnitude, and my feet aren't bleeding like yours. But you know how these things go, right? You say you're never going to do it again, and then you manage to be able to touch your toes, take your socks off. You're allowed back in the marital bed. All is forgiven, and you're like, right, which one's next? But yeah, I know it was an incredible challenge, Rob. You trained really hard for it. I think overall, what have they raised? Over £20,000. Maybe you do the obligatories because it's for a great cause, and I've been part of the Delalia Rugby Works stuff and seen what they're doing. But maybe you just do the formalities on it.
Yeah, there's a couple of companies and people that we do need to shout out. So Red Dragon from ALG Planning. Koros, the guys from George P. Johnson, Australia, Veloforte, Windsor and Eaton Brewery, and then finally, just to everyone who donated. So I raised 2,737 quid on my page, which I was kind of hoping for about £1,000. So to get nearly 3 is, insane. And then I think in total we've raised 20,000 plus. I think they're still sort of counting for the charity. Yeah, which is pretty mind-blowing really when you think about it. So yeah, really appreciate all the pod listeners. I bumped into so many pod listeners out there, and we held that little 5k shakeout run, and loads of lads came down and said how much they love the pod and stuff like that. So yeah, really cool, and just really appreciate everyone who sent money and messages of support and stuff like that.
Good on you, Rob, mate. That's awesome. And another caveat to it, Jim said whatever Rob raises, he'll match. So he's going to.
I've donated.
He's going to pump a load in.
Have you donated?
Send me the link,
with
lads.
my admin.
Send me the link.
Mate, we've had the link about 20 times. So I've already donated, Andrew. So you can go in there, read the comments like I have, and you can see that I have donated a small fortune.
Yeah, so mate, well done, Rob. Genuinely, and you fully deserved that flatbed in business class all the way home, right?
Premium economy it was.
Oh, you were premium. Oh, at least premium's good. Premium's good.
Oh, mate, I was like, yeah, I felt like a star.
He won't, mate. I saw the back of the engine from the picture that he took on the plane. There was no premium about that, mate. I know how these planes work. But yeah, good on you, Rob.
I just got one last question, Rob. When you walked through the house, how was it with the kids? Because you've been away, you've achieved something, you've done something ridiculously hard. And then you get home and you're probably buzzing, expecting a big hug from the missus, the kids, all excitement for you coming through the house. How was it as the man of the house, walking back in after doing a ridiculous challenge, going to the other side of the world? Did you have a good time when you got home? Did the missus say, Rob, you deserve this?
Mate, no one even cares. I flew into Newcastle Airport. No, genuinely flew into Newcastle Airport, and I was expecting, like a banner, like welcome home, Dad. I had to get an Uber home by myself.
Yeah.
Straight back down to earth.
Oh, that is the life of a dad, eh? The life of a dad. No one cares. Oh, we care.
Nah.
Jim and I care. Well done, mate. Well done, buddy.
Thanks, lads. Should we get into the game then? Because I had to do it old school. So the game was actually on while I was flying home yesterday. And I felt like I was in 1992. I was getting text updates.
Could you believe it?
Oh, mate, it looked wild.
I'm still buzzing off it, a little bit in shock. And again, the positives. So many casuals and so many people are talking about rugby, and there is so much to unpack in this, Andrew. Let's just give a general overview. I thought it was wicked. Lived up to everything we hoped for, everything we asked for, everything we thought it was going to live up to, and more. I didn't think it was going to unfold how it did. But you only have to look at the images and the emotion of the players and the coaches and the fact that it was trending and all of these things, just the effect that game had, good and bad, and we'll get through the good and the bad from an Australian perspective and from a British and Irish rugby fandom perspective as well. It was absolutely everything we could have hoped for.
Yeah, it really was. And that's what you want a Lions test match and test series to look like, right? And people have had a few moans about how it's been a little bit underwhelming building up to this point. The first test was underwhelming, but that second test, in my opinion, was absolutely everything. It's one of the best, especially the first half, was one of the best test matches we've seen in a long, long time. Probably comparable to some of those World Cup games in France in 2023. You pick out a few like France, South Africa, Ireland, New Zealand, those couple of games. But it was epic. And do you know what? Being at the MCG, and I don't know whether you'd appreciate this, Jim, the MCG is probably one of the most iconic stadiums, sports stadiums in the world. There hasn't been many test matches from a rugby perspective there, but in terms of Australian sport, that's the biggest stadium and the best stadium there is, right? AFL, the cricket, the test matches that go on there, Boxing Day test and everything that goes with it. It is an iconic stadium, and you wanted a game to live up to the surroundings, the fans, 90,300 people or however many the exact number was. It's the most watched Lions game in terms of spectators I think there's ever been. I think there was one in 90,000 in something like 1954 or whatever it was. But what an absolute belter. And do you know what? It starts off as the players are coming up the tunnel. So the players wouldn't have seen, you're doing the warm-ups, right? And it's filling up and you're not seeing the full sort of shebang going on inside the stadium. The way they come up the hill, so as they're poking their heads above the kind of horizon, coming up the hill out the changing rooms together to see the scene, it must have been the most spine-tingling thing a rugby player could ever witness. Maybe a World Cup final is up there as the same sort of thing, but just the way the entrance to the stadium and how it all was, it looked unbelievable. It was draped in red jerseys and fans, and there was a lot of gold there as well from Australia. But the build up to it and all the talking points before the game of how bad the Australians were in Test 1, how underwhelming they were, and people were saying it was a negative attitude to kick the ball out. And we said it on here, didn't we, that they were poor in that first test. So they had a load of pressure, but inside, and Jim said at the Oracle, they were going to be comfortably better than they were in that first test. And just the impact of picking Will Skelton and Rob Valentini. And I said it on the podcast last week, Will Skelton, playing with him, and I remember saying this to you, Jim, he makes every player around him, because the size of the bloke, improve 5-10%. Just by standing next to an absolute unit like that. And that opening half of rugby was unbelievable from both teams in different facets. But to see how good Australia were and going 23-5 up and eventually then seeing the Lions come back, the biggest ever comeback in a test match for the Lions, it was everything that you wanted. And then to win it at death in those circumstances, and we'll get into all the nuts and bolts of the game itself, but the whole story around the game from start to finish, pre-match, the build-up, seeing the lads come out to Hugo Keenan scoring the try right at the death with the last play of the game, effectively, it was spine-tingling to watch. I can't even imagine how good it would have been to be there or even playing it. It was off the charts.
Yeah, and I know I read your article this morning where you were talking about it's all to play for in the third game. Was that your quote?
Yeah, it is.
Or it's not a dead rubber?
Well, it's not a dead rubber, no. I mean, was it 121 years or something since the Lions have won a Test Series 3-0? So, and you're hearing the noises that Andy Farrell's making, Finn Russell's making, Henry Pollock said it earlier in the tour. They want to whitewash. They want 3-0 and to be the first team in over 100 years to do this. So while you could take your foot off the gas and just get on the pish all week in Sydney, unbelievable place to get on the pish, by the way, there's a bigger thing at stake here in terms of a whitewash or a red wash, if you want to call it that, and taking them to 3-0, because then you go down in folklore as the best Lions team in over 100 years, which is something that some of these lads will only go on one tour. I know we've seen Owen Farrell's on his fourth tour, Tyke Furlong, he's on his third tour, and there's a few guys like that, but some of these lads might never get a chance to play Lions again. So why would you want to give up that opportunity of smashing the Aussies in Test 3 and walking away and saying to yourself for the rest of your life, I was part of the best Lions team ever?
I disagree with you a little bit.
Oh,
mate.
Really?
I've been the hype man, and I'm more of a hype man than you. You know that, right? I just feel that game and how it unfolded deserved to go down to the third test, which I kind of wanted. And I know that it's been back and forth with a few people, a few mates of mine. I know it's divided opinion with our listeners as well. And we will, like you said, get into some of the nuts and bolts. You've got an Australia team there that were winning for the whole game, and the Lions win it with the last play of the game. And I just feel as if now it's, and you saw the celebrations, right? That if it was all to play for in the third test, then them celebrations would have been dampened. Every person to a man, Andy Farrell said it to himself, they're going to go out and basically get smashed for 3 days because they've won the series. That's what you've gone there to do. I don't want to devalue the game, and maybe you are the hype man that carries this episode then into Test 3. It's job done, mate. No one's going to remember or be bothered if they lose that third test. Go on, Rob.
Do you not think, though, that this tour, because of how poor the Wallabies are, do you not think this tour might be classed as maybe not a success if they don't win 3-0? Because as good a game as the second test was, this Wallabies side, they aren't a South Africa, they aren't an All Blacks, they're not a Wallabies of 12 years ago.
Lads, where's all the negativity coming from? Like, we're 2-0 up. We're going to win the series 3-0, and you're like, oh, it's not that good, or...
You know my views on it, and I'm sure that most people listening to this have listened to me and listened to us before, right? That game was unbelievable. We hoped it would be. we kind of knew it would be, right? You've got a nation there, and you saw Harry Wilson. He was having to hold back the tears after the game, during the press conference. You know, he handled himself with such dignity and integrity throughout, right? I'm a massive fan of him. You only had to look at Will Skelton, okay? Will Skelton just isn't a massive man, a journeyman. Mate, he's a proud Australian, and you saw the physicality. Mate, he's got 10 Lions players, one on each finger. He's grabbing them like he's there. Like, he is dominating. How good was ridiculous. That to see? An absolute phenomenal specimen when angry, okay, and when motivated, which he was. And he blew a gasket, right? He blew a fucking gasket. How can you carry? You cannot carry. And he alone, and Rob Valentini, and also the mindset of the Australians, gave them a platform to do what they did. And there is a part of me, there's a small part of me, and we will get into it, that feels like they deserve to win that game the way that Australia played. And there is. I'll be lying, right?
No, I agree.
And I'm a Lions fan.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what I mean. So that is why it feels like we go into the third test and it's a bit like, right? Imagine if that try wasn't given at the end. Imagine, sat here now, everyone's going to Sydney. I'm literally on a flight via Bangladesh now. I'm heading over. Rob's taping his feet up. He's going back over. Goody, you are, I was going to say you're getting divorced, but you're not married. But you'd be getting divorced now. Like the paperwork be going through. We're going over. Whereas now we're looking forward to this. This is just how I feel. It's job done, right? Yeah. I fully deserved. The Lions have been great. But yeah, you have to feel for Australia and Australian rugby. But I do feel as if they've done enough, and I can't speak for Australian people. I'm interviewing Gitz on Wednesday, so he'll give me a better gauge on, I think they've done enough to bring people back into rugby. And it's actually quite sad listening to the commentators, and I watched it on Sky and also went back and watched it from an Australian point of view, where they had Sean Maloney and they had the great Michael Hooper and Justin Harrison. Listen to their perspective on the build-up. So watch the build-up, the game, obviously, and then the aftermath, right? And the fact that they feel or they hope they've done enough to entice more Australian rugby fans in. And you have to go base on that performance. And that performance there was what I saw of Australia when I was tweeting stuff during the championship saying Australia are back, the physicality, all of these different things. And then I was a bit negative because we saw the tests that could come out for test one. And I felt, a bit underwhelmed because it didn't have Will Skelton. It didn't have Valentini, right? It didn't have these players in. They had a young 10 and it felt like, it's going to be difficult. And then test two, just them two players alone. I know Dave Parecki come in, who was brilliant as well. It felt different. And that's where it's like, okay, one more. And they're going to give it one more, right? They're going to give it one more. But I just don't know how the psychology works going into game 3, pride, all of these things. The Lions are going to have had 2-3 days enjoying themselves or whatever. What team does Andy Farrell pick? But forget all that for now. Let's just get into it. Let's get fucking into the nuts and bolts of what was an incredible test match.
Yeah, I mean, that first half was all built around, the first half an hour specifically was all built around the physicality from Skelton, as you said, and Valentini. Getting them on the front foot, winning collisions. The Lions' discipline was all over the shop. Sometimes had to be necessarily ill-disciplined because they were losing collisions, and off the back of that, under pressure. So the penalties do start coming because you're offside, because you're retreating and all that stuff. And the Aussies, it's the best, that open 30 minutes, that's the best the Aussies have played in God knows how long. Winning collisions, the sharp precision in attack, the kicking game was on point. You only have to look at Tom Wright's try, and I know it was when Freeman was in the bin, and that was a consequence of penalties and team penalties that were, Marrow gave a couple away, and a few other lads, Curry gave one away, all to do with being under pressure and losing the physical battle, right? But then they had the precision, the accuracy, and that Tom Wright try was just an absolute worldie. Suaalii steps on the inside of Bundyaki and Porter's, the disconnect between a centre and a prop when you're under the pump, holes just get bigger, don't they? And the footwork was great. Ball to Tom Wright. And it was, I'm looking at that 23-5 and I'm thinking, I was messaging you, Jim, saying we're going to Sydney, lads. We are going to Sydney. And they looked unplayable. at times with the physicality, with time after time being on the front foot, mainly because of Valentini and Will Skelton. And it was phenomenal to watch. The Lions didn't have an answer. And then eventually they managed to get some field position, and listening to Ron O'Gara on comms, I thought was brilliant in terms of tactically as a coach now, as well as he was a world-class 10 and played in these huge occasions, just understanding whether you want possession or territory. And, that you then add in some big moments, Finn Russell, some of his touch finders to get from penalties to get deep into Australian territory. The little play by Dan Sheehan, everyone's moaned about Dan Sheehan's try. Like, he has thought about that with the coaches probably. He's taken loads and loads of these tap penalties, and we've seen the kind of evolution of the 5 metre tap penalty around plays that Ireland have done, Leinster have done. All the teams have tried different things, and even the Lions tried a little one where they shoot around the blind side. It was his second or third go, and he's like, they're diving to try and tackle me super low, and I'm diving over the top of them. Perfectly legal within the laws of the game. When you're diving, you're allowed to dive in the act of scoring over a tackle. He's not jumped, he's dived for the line. And he could have got fucking smacked in the head, right? And he's put himself in that position to get a shoulder square in the head. And
it would have been play on.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Well, no, well, it would have been. It would have been, because what could
in that game it would have been.
Yeah, well, we said that last week, didn't we, about Piardi? What is this? Anything goes. But they claw their way back in. Sheehan obviously scores a try. Hugh Jones's try, Curry's try, Jameson Gibson Park just pulling out the right plays, picking out the right runners with the very limited possession that the Lions had. And it was kind of like rope-a-dope stuff, 23-5 down. Then the Lions get 2 quick tries just before half-time. But it was the precision from both teams and the kind of intensity in that first half was phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, it was incredible. And you did think when Will Skelton went off after, what was it?
Well, he went off after 47. The big one for me, and it's come out now, and I'm going to call Joe Schmidt out on it. Test 1, Will Skelton and Valentini were past fit to play the game the morning of the game, right? And they're your 2 best players from the second test match, right? And people have said, Will Skelton and Valentini, that Joe Schmidt isn't a big fan of theirs. How are you not a fan of theirs? Because he took Valentini off at half-time and said he was tightening up a bit. And Lange Gleeson comes on and does pretty well as well. But taking Valentini off at that point, and you hope that it was kind of a decision made by both the coach and the player and the physios and all that stuff. But he didn't look like he was struggling, whereas Will Skelton, for the last 5, 6, 7 minutes of that first half, you could see the tank was nearly running empty, right? Because he was so monstrous in the first 30 minutes.
That's where you knew, even at 23 points to 5, and it was interesting listening to Genji, and you can say, never in doubt, we knew the bench was going to come on, and there was no point in any game. Genji was talking about, and Dan Sheehan was talking about having been in games like that before, but it felt different with the connections they've got. It looks like they have got a great connection. I know you can say it's all about like the team and, the connectivity and building relationships. They look like they have gelled, and that's all credit to Andy Farrell, right? But to go from 23 points to 5 down to do what they did was it was monstrous. And the bench played a large part in that. We spoke about James Ryan, who I thought has been quiet on tour.
We said last week Scott Cummins deserved on form to be picked ahead of him.
But there you go. Andy Farrell knows James Ryan better than he knows anyone, right? Any of his players. He knows James Ryan. He's worked with him. He was phenomenal when he came on. The same as Genji. Okay, the bench was brilliant. And you can only put that down to the coaching and how Andy Farrell's made really tough decisions on this tour. And he's taken a lot of criticism, bringing Owen Farrell on at 13. So there was bringing James Lowe off and putting Blair King on the wing, I thought was a bit weird. But if we're passing judgment on Joe Schmidt bringing off Valentini and then having to bring Will Skelton off, I think Will Skelton, he was done, right? But I still think he would have offered
another 10. I reckon he had another 10 in him.
Well, you look at Williams, mate, for the try, he was running in rice pudding, mate. So he was struggling as well because it was a tough game. It was extremely physical, and I just felt when them 2 came off, you felt. Even in the stadium, and I imagine poor Tom Liner, because we were talking about Tom, weren't we? Like, we couldn't judge him on test 1. He had nothing to work with. How much better did he look? And he's still inexperienced, right, with these players. So for me, the blueprint is clear for Australian rugby, right? You've got these unbelievable athletes. Jorgensen, who I said last week was good. He were great this week. But we've mentioned about, we've spoken about Joseph Suaalii. How much better was Jake Gordon on the front foot?
Yeah.
Right?
He was helped by Piardi for the try, wasn't he? Did you see the blocking line?
I can't believe they give that. I can't believe they give that. I mean, should we go in positive? Should we go negative? Should we talk about some of the refereeing stuff or not?
Yeah.
The thing, the thing that really, really gets me, and I know it's every person's different, right? If you're refereeing a game, you referee it different to me, but just how differently the referees referee the game. It's just, it actually blows my mind. The interpretation and also the language that they use. It's the language that they use. And look, should we talk about it? Should we talk about the penalty at the end or not? Because for me, the penalty at the end that everyone's talking about that has gone viral is not necessarily, is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty? Every single breakdown, or okay, I don't want to be held accountable for this. 90% of breakdowns look like that.
Yeah.
We have spoken about on this podcast for the last 9 years how Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, the most physical teams around the breakdown, how they enter rucks, right? Off their feet. You're not allowed to enter rucks off your feet. You're not. You have to stay on your feet. Okay, so if you were to micro-analyse that breakdown, it's a penalty.
Ooh,
right?
Which bit, James? Because I think he's just on his
Jack
feet.
Morgan's off his feet.
As he makes contact with Tizzano, his knee is about 1/4 of an inch off the floor. So technically he's on his feet, lads.
Okay, is he supporting his own body weight? His arms on the floor. Look, right. Okay. So for me, in rugby, where we are as a game now, he is fine, okay, because he's actually probably cleaner than most of the clear-outs we see. Like Jack Morgan couldn't have done anything more. You are not clearing a body any better than he's done that, right? But to the letter of the law, and I've watched Joe Smith, and when Bernard Jackman came on, he said that Joe Smith knows the law book, the rule book, whatever you want to call it, the fucking Bible, right? Whatever it is, better than any coach. He understands it. So if that specific play happens, right, in a midweek game, or even in the first 5 minutes of this test match, no one is flinching, right? Maybe if Tizzano does the kind of rollback.
Absolute Hollywood when he's doing it. And
Would you have done that?
Would I have done it?
Would you have done a Hollywood like him?
100% I would. You know me, James.
There you go.
But this is the thing. So I need everyone to look at this, and I don't want to fluff up other people, but if you go onto the Rugby Guy's Instagram page, right, and he's put a couple of clips up just about the game, on one of his clips, it's the clip for the try for Keenan's, and he sat behind the billboards right close to that try line, right? And you see Tizzano, he gets banged, he gets up, he knows he's lost the collision, and then he dives and holds his head. If you watch his view of it, it is embarrassing. And I said it earlier in the season, there's too many lads now going into rucks, getting hit, holding their heads, looking for penalties. And it's come in the biggest game of the season where there's a bloke literally doing the best Hollywood impression you've ever seen, diving, holding his head. It was embarrassing.
I'd say embarrassing's a harsh word. I think for me, mate, and that people are, back in your day, you definitely wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that back in my day. But if you look at how the game unfolded, and I used this phrase when I was watching it, and I was watching it with a mate here, a South African called John, who played for the US.
Of course he was South African.
Big shout out to John.
Of course he was the Saffers.
I said, what people and what fans don't understand is what desperate men will do, okay? And this team of Australians, they played like desperate men, and desperate men are dangerous men, right? And you saw that, and it almost becomes unstoppable, right? And I have been in games, many games in my career, where I have been so fucking desperate. One, I will put my body, I will put my head, and I will put anything on the line to win that game. And what Tizzano did was desperate, okay? And it was desperate within a framework and within a game and within the emotion and the occasion that was the moment, right? So I can completely understand why a player would act like that, because he knows, right, if that ball's won, you get a feel for the game, the momentum's changed. So I'd say that embarrassing is...
Yeah, maybe that's too much. I'll take that back. Embarrassing, but it was over the top.
It was over the top because he was desperate to win. And that decision was on a knife edge, right? And it has split opinion. If you speak to an Australian and I listened to what the Australians were saying, they are so angry and passionate and upset. And these are players that have played. This is Michael Hooper. This is Justin Harrison. This is them boys. So I would understand if that was given. I'd be like, well, yeah, I can understand it, because again, we've got the look. Rob, you read out the 9.20, because you might sound more authoritarian. I thought authoritarian than I do.
Well, yeah, Joe Schmidt points to law 9.20, which states a player must not make contact with an opponent above the line of the shoulders. But the issue is that there's also the law about the headline not being above the waistline as well, isn't there? So he's citing one law when there's another law in direct contrast to that. So it's a minefield, isn't it?
This is rugby union, right? With so many laws that you can pick out, every breakdown you can pick out a penalty that's been missed or not given or whatever. And I'm sure there's a law in there somewhere, and I don't know where it is or what number it is, but it says something along the lines of, in a ruck, you need to keep your shoulders above the point of your waist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he has got his shoulders touching the floor. So where can Jack Morgan hit except the top of his back? When you bent over, your head is literally licking the grass. And you're kind of on your feet. He's not supporting his body weight. So where do we go with the argument? Is Tizzano supporting his body weight in the position he's in? Can he, if there was nothing there, he'd just fall over. So he's not supporting his body weight. So you can argue that. And this is the thing, it's a rugby incident, right? And had Jack Morgan's knee been on the floor before he made contact with Tizzano, you could probably say he's entered off his feet because his knee's on the deck. And then you could probably argue that is a penalty. But quarter of an inch, and Jim, you know all about quarter of an inches, it's that much off the deck. And it's very simple. You go back to the first test, the tackle, when Suaalii scores, and it was irrelevant in the test match because the Lions were comfortably winning that first test. But when Suaalii scores and they question Ben Earl's tackle, and this is the thing that Ben Earl's got in his game, right, where he puts a knee on the floor to chop and go low. That's illegal. But in the collision with Suaalii, his knee is about a quarter of an inch off the deck as he makes contact. And this is top-level sport where you are talking about the finest of margins between what's a penalty and what's not. I can understand the Aussies' frustration. I really can, because everyone wanted, from their perspective, they were so disappointed with Test 1. They put everything, poured their heart and soul and absolutely every amount of energy and emotion into that game to win it. And they were leading for 79 minutes and 20 seconds, right? And a lot of people say they would have deserved to win, but emotion has got on top of a few people with losing the series in that way. And I always think you flip it round, and if the Aussies had lost a test match with the reverse decision, they'd be going mad the other side. So I don't think you can isolate that. They isolated it and looked at it for the collision and the point of contact, right? And there was no clear head contact in that breakdown. And so you then can't, I don't think you should then go, oh, well, maybe he's off his feet, or maybe there's this, to then find a penalty where Australia get the penalty and kick the ball out and win the game. But there's loads of talking points around it. I think, and Wayne Barnes has been one of the best referees in the world for the last 10 or 15 years. He said he was pleased that...
British.
Well, yeah, British, yeah. But he was like, that's the right decision they've come to. And I genuinely think it'd be a bigger controversy had he penalised Jack Morgan and then the Aussies win the test, than not penalising him, and you're basically saying that's a rugby incident. And I think Jono was on Stan Sport as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Jono's like, No, that's fine by me. It's a rugby incident. What are you going to do? Rowan Nogara said it on Sky Sports comms. They said I think Miles Harrison said to him, "What are you seeing here?" And he was like, "That I'm seeing very little." I think he said, or "I'm not seeing anything." And so these collisions with big men happen. And if he'd have crawled in there like essentially some of the Leinster boys and Ireland boys have done at other breakdowns at times, you could argue it, but he didn't. He went in, boom.
And it was great for Jack Morgan as well, because he was on the bench, and imagine a little bit of people who are anti-Wales. And by the way, listeners, I am not anti-Wales. I absolutely love Wales. You know,
me too.
I do. Yeah, of course, you're a quarter Welsh. But if Jack Morgan gave away that penalty, and you know, you feel for him, because it was in what is coached, and in terms of overall breakdown optics, it was textbook. And I think I'll just finish on this, because the referee, and we could talk about a couple of more bits if you want to go neg on some of the scrum decisions against Australia were poor.
Yeah, they were.
There was a couple of not straights, and it ain't good enough. Like, it just isn't. You have to call it how it is. Now, at the top level, when you're looking at the athletes, you're looking at the quality of coaches, you're looking at the jeopardy on the games, this has lost them the test series. Okay, I believe it's not a penalty, right? I don't. But the terminology that Andre Piadre has used is wrong, right? Like, it's coming across wrong, and that's the frustration that he's going to get called out on. It's the same as the Champions Cup. What was it? Was it the final where Nika Amish Kelly was talking
final,
around?
Yeah.
That's the final of the biggest club competition, and you're using terminology that is wrong, and that shouldn't be the case.
You can grab the neck, but no twist.
Exactly. You can't grab the neck. And you know, this debate will live on in Australia. It'll be quickly forgotten from our side because we've won the test series. But yeah, they've got to be better in their delivery of information, I think.
What no one's talking about, or not many people are talking about, is actually the footwork and the speed of Hugo Keenan, who played under 14 D team for Blackrock College and is now the guy that has won the test series with a bit of individual brilliance. Skinny Nikitau, poor fella, got done twice for 2 tries. But that finish, imagine you're Hugo Keenan and you've scored the winning try in a second test match to win the series with a bit of individual footwork, in and out, bang, on the outside. And Hugo Keenan, the story of his tour is phenomenal as well, isn't it?
Imagine being on the toilet, Andrew, right?
I do a lot.
And you're sat
I don't
there.
need to imagine it. I sit there a lot, yeah.
But he's on there for days.
Yeah.
Apparently he was on there for 12 days. They call it the jacks. I call it the shitter. They call it the toilets, right? So imagine being sat there and you're like feeling like death and thinking, how is my tour going to unfold? You would never have foreskinned that, would you? Like, you just wouldn't have. You wouldn't have foreseen that at all.
But yeah, it's a great story, because it didn't really come out how bad he was until a week or so after the event, right? And how much weight he lost. He's not a big lad anyway. And you think about the season that he'd had. He was playing the sevens in the Olympics this time last year, pretty much, wasn't he? So you talk about longevity of a player,
dropping
and
weight.
You know, all the weight that he's lost is that to put back on. Then he's got the shits in Australia and lost a load of weight. You've got to build yourself back up. Like, it'd take me half a day to put on 5 kilos if I'd lost it. But for someone like Hugo Keenan, it takes a lot to put that weight back on. But then the fairy tale finish for him to score that try as the winner was just out of this world.
If Kinghorn hadn't got injured as well, and Daly, you could argue that he maybe wouldn't have even been there, because he hasn't been good, has he?
Well, a lot of it was to do with his illness, I suppose. And he had some injury issues at the back end of the season. I think it was a calf injury or something that he had at the back end of the season for Leinster, which goes back to he was playing the sevens in August last year. So he's you know, I know he's probably been looked after a little bit with Leinster and Ireland and all that stuff. But genuinely, it's a great story. And the best bit, how many people knew that he was in the Blackrock College under 14 D team on the bench as well or something? And he's now the British and Irish Lions hero for scoring the try to win the second test and the series in Melbourne. So, you know, that's a rugby story. If you're 14 years of age at the minute and you're in the D team, you're saying there's a chance. That's what you're thinking. You're saying there's a chance.
So cool.
Well, there was a few other big points in the game, and you go to the second half. Tom Curry makes a tackle on Suoliti, which I think keeps the test alive, right? Because if they score that, you know, McWright's made the break. I think Wilson won it back from a kick from Gordon, which was an error from James Lowe. And at that point, I think if Suaalii just gets the ball away, they've got 3 lads on the outside. If Tom Curry doesn't make that tackle, and big moments by big players win test matches, right? That was a massive moment. And there were a few others as well. But your thoughts on Tom Curry, mate? I thought he was outstanding again. Scores a try in the first half with good footwork. He's just a machine, isn't he?
Yeah, he's incredible. And again, we spoke about it before the first test. I thought Andy Farrell would pick him. I thought he'd pick him based on what he's done before, what he did in the jersey, had his tough times with injury to get back from his hip and stem cell and all of these things that you're hearing, having to manage his weeks. He is what is known as a test match animal, and it's as simple as that. And there was a few mistakes at the weekend with him and Marrow around the breakdown, but the biggest moments, sometimes the unseen moments as well, that a player... I don't know whether I saw it or I dreamt it. We were recording early here about how the best players deal with pressure. I know it's already out there in these leadership things or whatever, where they talk about players that and people in business that can deal with pressure, they're the best. People like Marrow and people like Tom Curry, in them pressure moments, right? And you could argue, or not even argue, you could put Ellis Genge into that conversation. You can 100% put Owen Farrell in that conversation.
Tadhg Beirne.
Right? Tadhg Beirne as well, absolutely, because Tadhg didn't play that well, but he delivered, right? I mean, that finish was incredible. That was a world-class finish, right? And if you're a player that doesn't deal well with pressure, okay, and that is unsure of yourself, you going into touch there, you're probably stepping back out, but to have the ability to juggle the ball and put it in the other hand and have the footwork and the confidence to deal with the pressure of doing that. And that is where Andy Farrell, for me, is one of the greatest, and for many people, is one of the greatest coaches, because not only does he understand the athlete, he deeply understands the men that he's picking. And I thought as well, so you mentioned Tom Curry was incredible. Marrow, again, as captain, people are asking questions. I actually think Marrow's been a bit quiet in terms of his output on the game and his effects, turnovers at the Maul. And there was a couple at the weekend where he was really good, the dark arts. But all of it put together, right, off the back of a really long season for a lot of these players, it comes down to players that can deal with pressure and players that have been there before. A la Owen Farrell, putting him on at 13. How much has he played at 13? But you saw the confidence and the control that he had in the biggest moments. Yeah. And that is the luxury that Andy Farrell had when picking these players.
Yeah. You talk about big moments. Tadhg Beirne's try as well. James Lowe, big-time player, didn't have a great game, made a load of errors, but the offload he gets away to Tadhg Beirne to score the try after doing Ikitau on the outside as well with a bit of footwork and his little step ago. And there's people, like I'm looking on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and there's people going, Bundee Aki, absolutely rubbish. James Lowe, absolutely rubbish. And I'm like, yeah, players make mistakes, but then you see a bit of world-class brilliance by James Lowe with that offload that creates a try. You see Bundee Aki make the break up the middle, the line he picks, and he makes the break up the middle that eventually leads to Hugo Keenan's try.
James Ryan's carries as well. Yeah,
James Ryan comes on, carries so big. And we were like, you should probably go Scott Cummings on form. You know, and it's minor details, but it's big details. So when Hugo Keenan prevents that 50-22 and then gets the clearance kick away, you know, little things like that, world-class kind of top-tier, top-of-the-range impacts at crucial moments, swing momentum towards your own team. I think to a man, yeah, it wasn't perfect. You look at Finn Russell, he didn't have an amazing game. You know, missed a conversion, he'd kick in his sleep, put a kick straight out in the second half, chucked one into touch. But the impact of his game management with Gibson Park, his touch kicking from penalties and the yardage that he got led to tries and led to kind of big moments for the Lions. And I think that was a kind of feeling of the game. The Aussies chucked everything at us and lads were making mistakes and we were on the back foot. But then these world-class operators, one by one, had big moments throughout the game, which led the Lions back from 23-5 down all the way to the 79th minute, 80th minute to win it with a Hugo Keenan bit of brilliance. But there was big, like Blair Kinghorn comes on, makes him with a carry, makes 10 or 15 yards that you don't expect him to make, right? Because where he's hit and where he ends up, that just leads to a bit more pressure on the defence, and retreating, it means your attacks going forward. And all the big players had big moments at some point. They all had the odd error here or there as well, but that was down to the Aussies being 1,000,000% better than they were the week before and winning the physical battle. But it was big moments, big players stepped up at key times, and Curry's tackle was one, and all the others that we've listed off were, absolutely outstanding. Farrell going back to clear out, when they put the kick through. Faz just gets back and he's first there, gets the clear out. And that's not seen by people. That's just expected, I think.
Yeah, people are seeing the missed tackle when he gets bumped first up. And this is where, there are so many things that go into a game of rugby. It's not just your form on tour or making a break or not missing a tackle. And that's the thing, and that's the beauty. And I said to you, I think, Goody, we go not up and down with the game. It's been a long season, right? Not physically. It's been a long season mentally for us, and hyping up games and passing judgment and all of these things. But like looking at that at the weekend and all the little nuances and like how the game was won, the shit people don't see, the stuff that we value, the stuff that the coaches value, mate, it's such a cool game. Like, it's such a cool sport. And the fact that we get to talk about it. And I just think fair play to Andy Farrell, the coaching team, everyone in behind that, all the players that have got called up. It was great to watch at the weekend.
Yeah. I mean, there has been loads of people questioning stuff around the tour and what's gone on with selections, and it's headline news all the time, right? And it's social media saying stuff, and anyone's got an opinion now, which is fine. But we always said, whatever Andy Farrell does, he'll be judged on whether he wins a test series. And every decision he seems to have made, whether it's using the bench at the right time, picking players that most people perhaps think, someone else should play. And as you said, he knows the men. He knows them as rugby players. He knows them as men. He knows where they can go into the dark side of pushing yourself as an individual. He's got everything spot on. Absolutely everything spot on. And what you said earlier on around how tight the group seem, you do that for, if you create a great environment, players will go that extra yard. And I'm sure every player has done that for Andy Farrell on tour. And you just need to tip the slipper to all of them.
Do you think in 12 years' time, the Lions come back to Australia then? Or do you think this is the final nail in the coffin for Australian Rugby Union, especially if it's 3-0?
Rob, what have you got against? What have you got against Australia?
Hold on. Don't forget the World Cup's in 2 years and we want to be out there, Rob. So no, Australia, we love you.
I think Rob he's got trauma. His feet are in pieces, right? He's seeing dead kangaroos. He's got snake skin in between his toes. What's going on, Rob? You're saying what?
Lads, I'm saying this. I've been on the ground in Australia, being there. Nobody even knows the Lions is going. Like, your everyday Australian does not know what the Lions is, doesn't know what rugby union is. Walking around Brisbane, you're seeing Lions jerseys every couple of seconds, but the Aussies don't even know what it is.
I get it, Rob. I get what you're saying.
This tour props up their rugby union, and I get it. It's a two-way thing. They've given us some of the best games we've ever seen. But I can't help but think maybe there could be better tours for the fans and better for the game elsewhere. When you floated the idea about France and...
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Rob, you've gone negative and then you've tried to go positive by saying you've seen the two best games you've ever seen. There's only one. The game at the weekend was incredible. The first test wasn't. So it's one game. It's probably a conversation for another time, I reckon, because if it is 3-0, and again, I don't want to devalue the game, it is irrelevant, but if it is 3-0, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in Sydney, what people are saying about the energy in Sydney, where, I don't know, not that it matters, but maybe it is a reference point, where this Lion series features on the newspapers over there. How hard they go at the referee. Are they that bothered? Is Mark Nawaqanitawase watching the games, or is he thinking, nah, I'm never coming back to Union again because he's been carving up in league? So there's a load of things in this, isn't it? And I think we'd be harsh to comment, but it's undeniable, right, that the conversation's going to be there. Imagine having one in France, right? And you've got the Lions playing against Toulouse and Bordeaux and La Rochelle and Perpignan or whoever it is. I think commercially it would be mega. And I think also from a contest point of view, it'd be undeniable, right? Because France are so good, and the midweek games would be phenomenal as well. And the fact that there is that follow ship and support in France where they buy into it, right? So you know my feelings on that, but it's hard, isn't it, to break tradition. You know my views on it. I am a traditionalist at heart, but also I love innovation. I think it'd be wicked to do it in France, if you're asking my honest opinion. But to drop it completely from Australia would be quite harsh. But they've got an unbelievable amount of work to do for 12 years, but also the World Cup in 2 years' time as well.
Yeah. I reckon you can reshape a Lions tour to Australia by having Fiji and Japan and Samoa and Tonga instead of, let's be honest, some of the garbage warm-up games that we saw. And that's the state of Super Rugby teams in Australia at the minute. Whether that gets better or not, I don't know. But if you can involve some tougher teams like Fiji, imagine playing Fiji, the Lions against Fiji, and you'd expect them to win, right? But Samoa as well, these teams where you'll maybe going there on the way and then playing a 3-test series against Australia at the back end of it. France, yeah, 100%. And I suppose the big thing, 1927 was when the last time the Lions 3-0'd someone, which was against Argentina, and we probably haven't toured there since. I might be wrong, but basically, if the Lions win 3-0, the Aussies might be getting ditched, which sounds harsh, but and they're in a place where they've got the World Cup in 2 years. Rugby union has gone downhill there, and there's some good people trying to bring the game back up and back into the limelight. It's going to take investment. It's going to, you've lost a load of players to league, because rugby league is, I don't know the numbers, but it's definitely a top 3 sport out in Australia. People will argue AFL is another one, cricket. There's loads of sports out there that are way ahead of rugby union. And the reality of it is they've got to invest and find talent and get it into schools more, and get it into the public domain for it to stay relevant and for the Lions to want to go back there, I suppose.
Right, lads, we've got some non-Lions news, some other news.
Sorry, Rob. In what?
In other news!
In other news! Thank you, Rob. In other news! What have we? There is a bit out there, Andrew. Hit me!
Well, the first bit of news, James, in other news, is the 10 clubs in the Gallagher Premiership, a.k.a. the Prem, from the rebrand, made a staggering combined loss of just over £32 million in the last financial year, according to a report on the Business Live website. I see this as a win, lads, because a couple of years ago it was 45 million, so it's been cut by 13 or so million. What are your thoughts, Jim?
So I love that. You read the headline and then you expect me to pass judgment. I don't know. We've got a bit of work to do, haven't we? I feel as if, lads, we are genuinely going in the right direction. It's taking a long time. We are going at a slug's pace. People will blame COVID and all of these things, and I get it. We are 100% going in the right direction. We just need to put the right people in the positions to make shit happen. And remember, I've seen under the bonnet. I've been close to the top table. Things are slow.
What does it look like under the bonnet, James?
Under the bonnet, there's some parts that look nice, and they're good parts, but they are the wrong parts. Unfortunately, we need to get the right people in the right places that make things happen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say it positively. There's a lot of good people with good intentions in our game, but I reckon there's 75% of time wasted. That's what I feel like, and funding, and money. All right, I'm not going to say any more than that. Okay, I'm on about across the board. It's based on not expertise. It's based on feel. It's based on what I've seen and us doing this a long time and speaking to people that don't necessarily, when you speak to them on a podcast or when you ask them questions in the media, they'll give them answers. And then when you speak to them off record, they give you very different answers.
Yeah. The big thing you said then was around where the money's being spent, how it's being spent, and return on investment with stuff. Some numbers will come out further down the line about stuff that's been heavily invested in that has had very little return on investment, which is leaving black holes everywhere. And so, like you said, it's the feel, or is it the actual numbers of what we're doing. And you strip it right back, in reality, clubs have lost less money this year or last year than they have previously, which is a positive sign. But still, they're losing big chunks of money for various different reasons. And, hopefully that number keeps coming down. And then in 20 years' time, we'll post a profit. Let's go, Prem.
Never mind that, lads. We've got game on Thursday nights now, so we're sorted.
Well, I'll tell you now, the opening round of the Premiership is starting on a Thursday night. I think they're playing Thursday night, Friday night, and possibly Sunday. There's no game on Saturday because it clashes with the Women's World Cup final. But also they're doing a Thursday night game in the Six Nations as well next February. So
that's what I thought we were talking about. I didn't realise it's Thursday for the Prem. I'm not feeling it. Sorry.
The end.
But
it's innovation, James. I thought this is what you wanted. We were doing something different.
Yeah, I know, but it's a random. It's just a one-off. But look, I mean, I like evening games. I'll put it out there. I like night games. So whether or not it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or a Friday, or a Saturday, or a Sunday, I do like evening matches.
I suppose the big problem with, and we've just bounced off clubs losing money. Clubs make the most money on match days from corporate hospitality and ticket sales, obviously. And Friday night games, Thursday night games, they're going to absolutely hammer the corporate hospitality side of things. And so...
What, in a good way?
No.
Like you're hammering or Rob's hammering?
No, badly. Because you won't get as much money through the door on a Thursday night as you would on a Saturday in terms of the hospitality and where clubs can make most money. And so ultimately, innovation, great, but knock-on effect and results-wise can only be seen further down the line. But I know, speaking to a lot of people at different clubs commercially, Friday night games and Thursday night games, they're going to make less money on those match days than they would on a Saturday.
Where are they best placed? Is it Saturday or is it a Sunday? Is Saturday 3:00? Is that the one, is it?
It's different to different clubs, right? So take Leicester. Leicester's a traditional club. Saturday afternoon kickoff, that's when you're going to get more people through the door.
3:00.
Yeah, old school. More people through the door, more people in corporate hospitality, more money into the club. And that's a fact for Leicester. Other clubs, are slightly different. So a sale might be better on a Friday than it is on a Sunday, because in Manchester, a lot of people will go and watch or be big football fans, so Man City or Man United, and base their weekends around that stuff. So geographically, it's different for different clubs. But what I do know is the majority of clubs make a lot less money on a Friday night or a Sunday fixture than they do on a Saturday. But then ultimately, you've got a TV revenue stream coming through TNT Sports in the Premiership or Prem Sports in the URC that need to dictate when the games are played to a certain extent, so that they can get max value from their investment of trying to get people to watch it from home. So it's a tough argument, but yeah, I don't think Thursday night rugby is a long-term venture to make more cash, because it probably isn't. But that's a bit neggy.
That was going to be my point, though, that if we do have our own day, where we're not trying to fight against football like we do on a Saturday or a Sunday, could the argument be that you take one step back in terms of the amount of money they bring in to take two steps forwards in terms of the amount of eyes that are watching the game?
Summer rugby.
What do Rugby League do now, Rob? Because Rugby League used to be the biggest game on the Friday night back in the day, and we all watched it.
Loved it.
It was unbelievable when it was absolutely humming. When do Rugby League play now?
I don't even know. I don't even watch it now. I don't know.
Exactly. But I think their big game is a Thursday night, which no one watches in the stadium. So maybe I'm just being a bit negative about it. And it's hard. You have to have a balance across games across Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because the main bulk of revenue for these clubs is from the TV deal.
The Red Bull Falcons.
Yeah, I knew you wanted to talk about this. They've got some cash to splash. Right? Has it officially been announced yet? It hasn't been officially announced. What's happening?
It's coming, lads. It's coming. We've got new badges on our shirts now, so it's definitely happening.
Hang on, is there a Red Bull badge on the shirt?
Well, if you look, they put some photos on the Instagram this week, and if you look close, if you zoom in on the badge, so it's got a Falcons badge, and it just says Falcons underneath, and then above that, they've pixelated out the top bit. I think it's a done deal, lads.
Well, you think
Hang
so?
on.
I've gone onto their I've gone onto their website, and there's absolutely nothing on there about the Red Bull buyout.
Mate, no one uses websites now.
Something ain't right with all this. Something ain't right. I don't know what's going on, but if Red Bull were coming in properly, I mean, why? I mean, firstly, why? Why are you doing that?
Cheap.
But hang on.
He sold it as cheap. Do you remember? Rob said, "Why would you do it? Oh, it's cheap."
I can't see Red Bull. I can't see Red Bull anywhere, Rob.
Mate, it's coming. Look at the badge. They've got
Right.
a new badge that's followed the same theme as all the other Red Bull acquisitions badges. It's like a crest now. You know, with the Falcon was just on its own. So it's within a crest. And if you look closely...
Mate, no one's ever looked this closely at Newcastle's badge, mate.
Rob, but hang on. The pictures they're posting from pre-season are all blurry. So what's going on?
Lads, we're getting all Blacks are coming over now. Don't worry about us.
I ain't seeing Red Bull, lads. I can't see it anywhere. But I am hearing that they're signing Finlay Christie. I mean, he's Scottish and he's from that neck of the woods anyway. I think he grew up in the Borders. So, but I'm not seeing Red Bull. I ain't seeing it, Rob. Sorry, mate. I want to see it. I do. I want to see it. I think Red Bull's a cool brand, but I can't see it, pal.
What, you don't think it's happening?
Well, no, I can't see the fucking badge, the Red Bull thing. I don't know. I don't know whether it's happening or not. We announced it. I announced it on Twitter that it's happening because I heard it was. But
yeah, it's
there
been
ain't
months.
a big song and dance about it.
It's been months, hasn't it? It's been absolutely ages since Jim exclusively broke the news, but still nothing. Come on, Falcons, just tell us. You are now known as the Red Bull Falcons.
Right, then, should we finish things off with the good, the bad and the ugly?
Yeah, not masses to get through, but there's a few bits. We're going to start off over in South America, James, not far from you. You're in America at the minute still, but a little bit further south. Chile. They beat Brazil. Yeah, Chile beat Brazil 35-20 to get to the final of the South American Conference and a step closer to the Australia 27 World Cup. They're going to end up playing Uruguay and they'll probably get battered by Uruguay, because they're a damn good team. But then I think Chile might get another chance through some repechage or some other way of getting to the World Cup. So big shout out to Chile. They battered Brazil over 2 legs.
I've been there. I've been to Chile. There was a player there that defecated on Harry Ellis, if you remember, when there was an earthquake.
That was you.
Yeah.
That was you.
No comment. But I've been to Chile when I was English. I had sunstroke. That was why. We all had sunstroke. Shaved the heads, lads.
That's a great story, actually. And then the only other Goode, obviously, we're just going to go straight with it. The Goode this week goes to the British and Irish Lions. Hugo Keenan finishing it off, make a statue of him. Andy Farrell, a tactical and selection genius, knowing how to get the best out of his team, out of his squad, with changes, picking players that from the outside people might not have picked, but he knows rugby union better than most. And so the British and Irish Lions, Andy Farrell, everyone involved with the squad, winning 2-0. Finn Russell, will name him, Jameson Gibson-Park, Dan Sheehan, all the top players from the tour. They collectively win the Goode this week, James.
Here.
The bad, few bits of bad. We're going to start off with the British and Irish Lions, actually. They're going to get a mention in the bad as well. But specifically, the management above Andy Farrell, not Andy Farrell, the management, Ben Calverley, the CEO, is getting mentioned in the bad.
What?
Well, they blocked Pete Samu from playing for the First Nations and Pacifica team on Tuesday last week because in a contract, it says you have to have played Super Rugby. We all know he played at Bordeaux last year. He's gone back and he's signed for the Waratahs for next season. But let the boys play, lads. You surely wanted the best players to play against the Lions. But anyway, that's my little rant on that one. What else was bad? I'm just going to go with it. Joe Schmidt and the Aussie commentators are going to get the bad this week. They went so hard on the ref's decision at the end. Rugby Australia have gone one step further as well and said they want accountability from World Rugby. The whinging Aussies claims that they've been robbed. But for me, it's play on, lads. So get over yourselves. Don't go too harsh on PRD. High five. And take it in the way it was meant. British and Irish Lions were way better than the Australians. The end.
Mate, they've lost the tour, Andrew. They've lost the series. They might have lost the series forever. They might, take the tour off them because they lost. Mate.
They're getting the bad as well.
All right, you can do it. It's yours, mate.
Yeah, they're getting the bad as well for that. And then the ugly, I feel a bit harsh doing this now, but the ugly this week is going to go to Carlo Tizzano for his Hollywood dive. And I feel harsh doing it because Jim's kind of defended it a little bit. But I'm just imploring everyone, have a look at the Rugby Guys Instagram page and the video. And there's a split second where he gets hit off the ball, he stands up, and then he takes the biggest Hollywood dive holding his head you've ever seen. We don't need play acting in the game, Carlo Tizzano, and that is why you win the ugly this week.
Right, lads, should we finish with some shout-outs?
Let's do it.
Yeah, firstly, a shout-out to Ali Donaldson, whose team, Long Levens Mixed Ability Rugby Team, won the World Mixed Ability Cup in Spain last month. So well done to Ali and all the guys and girls there.
I've also got a shout-out to More Together, who are fundraising team from, that's right, Bridgnorth.
Bridgnorth,
yeah,
it's back.
Club.
The walk-off. The walk-off.
Yeah, I know, the walk-off. I will be back there. But yeah, that's the home of my famous speech, or non-speech, the Bridgnorth Rugby Club. But they have just completed their awareness ride, creating awareness for 3 amazing charities, Matt Hampson Foundation, 4Ed, and My Name's Doddy Foundation. The ride was from Bridgnorth Rugby Club, where I've been and walked off, in Shropshire, hard place to get to the Matt Hampson Get Busy Living Centre, and then down to Gloucester's King's Home, where 4Ed are based. Please follow More Together on the social media channels to follow the journey and to find links to the donation page. So well done, everyone at Bridgnorth Rugby Club. I owe you, I know.
There you go. Totally redeeming yourself, Jim Hamilton.
There you go. Exactly. It's charity, mate. You know, it's charity.
Maybe we should do a marathon with them, Jim. Maybe that could be our next thing.
Rob, you can't even take your socks off at the minute. What are you talking about, mate?
I'll be in the car. I'll drive the car supporting you, lads. There's no way I can run.
There's a few things coming up, though. Do you remember the Ed Slater? I know you don't remember it. The 7-4-5 game.
Yeah, we went up to Leeds, didn't we?
I don't want to get everyone excited, but I'm feeling pretty good at the minute. There's a game in September.
Oh, jeez. Are you going to play?
I saw Justin Harrison playing. I saw some of the lads playing in that game, the Classic Lions versus the Wallabies. And then I went to bed dreaming about it, and fuck, I was good. I didn't play, obviously, but in the dream I was good. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to play in this game.
Just remember James Hook's handoff, mate. I've seen Drew Mitchell has got himself in the shape of his life, and his hamstring went ping. I saw Tins has snapped his Achilles or something. Yeah, mate.
Mike Ross snaps his Achilles as well. I mean, fucking commitment to the game, mate.
Go on, lads. Go on, lads.
I'm going to do it. But big thank you to everyone as well. It's we're in the weeds of it now, aren't we? British and Irish Lions Tour. So thank you for everyone for the season so far.
Just one to go, James. 3-0, and we'll be reviewing the whole Lions Tour next week, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Cheers, lads.
One more to go, lads.
Yeah, one more pod to go.
One more. Here we go. Rugby Pod.
Spotted pod.